Hi, my name is Jacob Dietrich. I'm the owner of Body, Mind, and Sound and Fresh Food Nearby. I am speaking with Jesuis Laplume in this video. He has a background in engineering physics. He has a bachelor's of science in with the aeronautical option. By the age of 26, he created his first hardware in space. And today we'll be talking about why the universe loves us unconditionally. He also had many heart attacks, which accelerated his spiritual awareness, where he was able to have out of body experiences. And during these experiences, he managed to connect with a feminine spirit, which helps him write. And he writes a lot of books now. I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching. You had some out-of-body experiences and heart attacks and strokes, and then shortly after that you heard voices. And the question on this call is, why does the universe love us unconditionally? Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, because I was so involved in astronomy, actually even making parts for large ground-based telescopes, but mostly in space, I was trying to understand basically the process of how the universe got started. And of course, since I questioned everyone and everything, I questioned how could the universe have come into being and what sort of a universe was it? And when I wrote what I was told to say in many cases, and that was that before the Big Bang, there actually was a field of pure information that guided everything that happened, and that the universe was purposely chosen to A, produce life early on, but B, to produce creatures like humans, and that the universe actually loves us more than we could understand what love means. And that goes so much against what we're taught from so many sources. So, of course, I questioned it, and I wrote things and changed things, and I was told to correct them, which these days I do. So it's a matter of out of the myriad of possibilities of what the universe could have become, this universe is tailored specifically, A, to produce life, and B, to produce such as humans. And I strongly suspect that there are other creatures in this universe that are like humans, and they might actually have existed before we did, because our planet, of course, came along somewhat late in the process. But it would appear that many, many people now are starting to suggest that our understanding of the universe is such that this is a guided universe, that the universe was created to produce us, and apparently the universe is very knowing, understanding. Sentient is one of the words that has been used, and that we are loved, and that all of the messages that we get that's saying that no, we aren't, is just from humans trying to distort the message. So the more I wrote and the more I read about what other people are doing at the leading edge, the more I realized that it is likely, very likely actually, that this universe intends us to exist and intends us to ask embarrassing questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What's the universe really like? And what should I be doing with my life? And as I studied many religions, I read about 6 to 8 hours a day in a typical day. That so much of what is out there goes against that. It does not say that. So I guess one of my purposes is to at least create things which provide an opposite opinion to we're rotten, nasty beings and we deserve everything that goes wrong.
Yeah, I have heard of a lot of theories of different, what do they call them, the reptilians, they call these
Yes.
other, have you heard of that?
Oh yeah, I have several friends who are. I have never actually seen an alien, but I have friends who have, and basically early on, we were guided towards anger and fear, but at the moment there's about 500 million human beings who are trying to live love-focused lives, and the nice alien type peoples of the universe, those parts of the universe, are waiting for humans to finally choose to become love-focused. And when we do that, we'll be welcomed. But my focus is just to try and explain what love means, how well we're loved. And most of my writing is pretty up-tempo. I have one angry little book called, it's just a mini book, 40 pages, and it's called Your God is Too Small. And it just explains how the universe apparently was created within God. So God's got to be bigger than the universe. And we now know that the universe might be close to infinite in size. And yet we hear all these stories about an angry, jealous, whatever God that has all of these nasty human characteristics. And that's all nonsense. We're loved beyond our ability to comprehend love. And I've been lucky in my life. I've met a number of couples, older couples, who, when they walked into a room, would make everybody in the room feel better, like somebody had just given them a hug. So I know this sort of love exists. I've experienced it. I know it.
Yeah, I feel like that was the way my wife and I began, until we had some disagreements in certain areas of our life, of which we're working on to annul. And as we work on it, we are re-experiencing that passion we had in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
I have to say for myself, I've experienced that when we met. It's so powerful that when we were together, it seemed as if the universe was literally saying, putting songs, like turning on songs when on a jukebox.
Yep.
So in a we went to a bar and we were playing pool. We had some few drinks. We don't get drunk, but we were having drinks and playing pool. And I remember listening to the jukebox, and 1 minute it's just heavy metal music, this crazy stuff, and then the next song was like a love song. Yep. And when that came on, it just the song and the connection between her and I became like more than just, gosh, I can't even explain it. Like as if I was connected with the love, the pure love.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's called serendipity, and
mm,
and this is one of the signs that really turn people around. The fact that there will be circumstances, in fact, you know that in fact that you are loved and your purpose is to love. And it's perfectly okay, by the way, to go through rough times because we humans only learn from our mistakes, not our successes.
yeah. Sometimes.
So, yeah,
Sometimes
well,
you're like,
you
that works. I'm
can,
going to stick with it.
yeah, no, and my next book is basically going to be kind of about that process of starting with sex to making love and then to actually becoming one in the one or at home in the one. And it's quite likely that nothing that comes our way does not bring us lessons that have yet to be learned well enough. And if we refuse to learn them, guess what? Next thing you know, they come back again in a different guise and maybe with a bit sharper edge.
Mm.
So finally, we just give up and say, I guess I'm going to learn that.
Yeah, absolutely. It will reoccur until you finally get the picture, and then it'll once you realize that that's the wrong path, then it changes and you readjust.
Yes, yeah. And that's, since I actually worked and was known in 8 different fields of engineering and science, uh, I know how people learn and how hard we resist learning things that are new and different. But the universe is kind of loving and forgiving, and it says, "Well, it's okay. If you don't learn it this time, I'll just bring you back to the lesson again, and maybe one of these times you're going to be unhappy with stumbling over things and say, oh, hell, I'm going to go ahead and learn that lesson. I think I figure out what the lesson is, and I think I'll just choose to learn it. It's kind of the way things work. It's really interesting, and one of the things that happens when I disappear from time and space when I'm writing is this intimate feeling of being loved as I write, which is one of the reasons I write. And I think we have been taught so many falsehoods and told so many lies so that other people can control us, but certainly people with power tend to be scared to living daylights by those who are deeply in love, because you can't control someone who is just totally completely in love. It's just not possible.
Mm.
See, I know that if someone were to tell me do this terrible thing or I'll kill you, I'll say okay, because I now know that in fact that when this body dies, I don't die. I'm an eternal spiritual being having a string of experiences, quite likely a string of bodies. And if they kill my body, big deal. I can't die. I am life. I am love. And I'm having trouble writing that well enough, which is one of the reasons I have 19 books and 6 mini books and I'm working on more. But it's just the process of writing it and explaining it many different ways that finally I start to understand, because that's what I've always done. I mean, from the time that I started my first work on things that went into space, it was by writing out what I thought were the problems that allowed me to see the problems.
Mm.
So it's been with me virtually forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, so before the heart attacks and the...
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, to tell you the truth, I've had the two out-of-body experiences, and one of them was I went into a catatonic fit, and I was up in the corner of the bedroom watching people panic over me, and I got into terrible trouble later on when I told my first wife that I thought it was kind of funny that they were so upset with things, because I was very peaceful, and I knew that they were upset, but I wasn't upset. Um, and then when a nurse, after a heart attack, my last heart attack actually, injected blood thinner into my abdomen, which you're never supposed to do, and I became totally paralyzed. Again, I went through a second out-of-body experience and kind of watched it all going on. And again, I was peaceful. I knew everybody was upset. Uh, and I was not. I mean, I knew that everything was okay, and that things were going to be okay. But you don't want to tell your wife that, in fact, that you were peaceful and you knew she was upset, but it didn't matter. You know what? That doesn't fly worth a darn. It really doesn't fly worth a darn.
No. Yeah. Well, you were in a state of relax. You were out of your emotional body, because
Yeah.
they were in the emotional.
I wasn't in my physical body at all. Here's something about the universe that most people don't understand. Excuse me. Sorry. When the universe came into being, there wasn't even a space-time grid for space and time to exist. But there already was this, and I was told to call it pure information, because it isn't part of the energy matter component of the universe. It has no dimensions, just like mind or numbers. Numbers have no dimensions. Do you know that when we use the word mind, we mean about 7 different things, and all of them could be true as we talk about mind in a different way, and that's a problem that humans are going to have to get over. We're going to have to learn how to invent new words that are more precise. But the universe already was, before it even came into being, was being guided by something which is, now, some writers call it spirit with a capital S, and they say that we are spiritual beings with a small s. And I write about that sort of thing in some of my books. But the reality is that the universe is much more non-dimensional, non-energy, non-matter. And I was a scientist that studied energy matter sorts of things and became well known worldwide on it. But it doesn't change the fact that the energy matter component of us is a minor component. And now there's some wonderful work going on by researchers who are pushing every limit of what we thought we know, and realized that they were based on assumptions which were too small. And as they're doing that, it's becoming more and more obvious that the universe is really quite different from anything we've been told about. And sorry, I'll quit squeaking the chair. And that's okay, because we're in contact. My connection as a human being and your connection to as a human being to the universe, the basic universe itself, is internal. We don't need an outside connection. It's within us. So one of my books, I think it's my 4th book, is You Are in God, God is in You. It's paired with a book called Alone. But that's the concept. There is no separation between you and the universe, or from the God creator, whatever essence you want to call God. People with misuse the word all the time, but it doesn't change the fact that we need other people, we need experiences, interactions with others to ask better questions, but the answers come from our connection to the universe, which when you do interact, as I have at times, not always, but much of the time, I realize is a very loving presence. And the weird thing is that if there are the species that some people call the reptilians, they can be just totally blown away and destroyed by love, and human beings are starting to do that. There's about 500 million human beings now trying to live love-focused lives. And so in a nonlinear, this is a very nonlinear universe. In other words, there are no straight lines, and there are no way of describing it using simple math. You have to go to logarithms or exponentials. One loving thought is equivalent to maybe hundreds of thousands, if not a million or so, of despairing thoughts.
Wow.
And it's really difficult to comprehend that. A couple of my books have got a little illustration of just how crazy a log-based 10 system is, and that's what scientists use to describe ranges of things. But one loving thought may actually overwhelm maybe a million despairing thoughts. So it's never too late to say, I'm fed up. I'm not going to live in fear. I did that myself, actually. I was living in fear. My book was called, one of my books was called Living in Fear, An Ongoing Choice. And I was editing it, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I won't do this anymore. I won't live in fear. I'm going to live in love. And unfortunately, my now ex said, you're crazy. I can't live with you. You're too crazy. Can't you see how awful things are? And I says, but you're not awful. You're wonderful. He says, no, you don't understand. Everything's going to go to hell. And I said, I don't care. I don't care. I just don't care. I've just got to be a living example of love. And she's wonderful, but her parents taught her differently.
Yeah. That's a plague, I could say, on humanity. The pessimism and fear, definitely.
Yeah, but people, what people don't realize is those in power and those with scads of ill-gotten gains, they're actually very fearful people who believe deeply that they are not enough. Mm-hmm. And they figure if they can just get enough power or get enough money or get enough possessions, that they will be enough. But you can't go. That's not where you become enough. You are already enough. It's just that you are taught to believe you aren't, and you believe this bad thinking, the bad teaching. And that's just not right. I mean, it's so not right. And do you know David R. Hawkins at all? You ever read any of his stuff?
I have not.
Yeah, he did some work using kinesiology, which is using your body as an instrument.
Yeah, I was, that was my major in college.
No, was it? Yeah. Well,
yeah.
He came up with a scale of consciousness that goes from 0, it's a log-based 10 scale, 0 for a bacterium, a single bacterium, to 1,000 for as high as a human body can go without literally blowing up, because it's holding up trying to contain so much spiritual power. And basically, using his scale, we now realize that as a species, dogs are much more spiritually powerful than humans, because there are so many humans that are living at such a low spiritual level. They're literally They don't believe there's truth. They don't believe there's hope.
Mm-hmm.
And the sum total of all those humans is holding us down, except for the fact that there are now so many people that are trying to live love-focused lives. Even using lousy teaching, they're still trying to be loving.
Mm-hmm.
That they literally are more powerful than all of the other humans combined. And that's one of the reasons why we may be visited fairly soon with the other beings. We call them aliens. I guess we're aliens to them, right? They're aliens to us. But we're beings that want to become more than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very wild and woolly universe. Everybody tries to make it too simple.
Mm-hmm.
In our present education system, the teaching in school it tries to actually teach at the level of the lowest quarter of the students,
Mm-hmm.
not the highest. Not You don't try and teach the ones that are going to be great. You try and bring them down by teaching them at a much lower level.
Yes. I see that in my child's class. She's a really, really good reader.
Yep.
And,
And so her teacher's going to try and draw her down so that she doesn't embarrass the other students who basically aren't even trying.
well, they do. It depends on the teacher.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
know. I don't know about this teacher, but the last teacher did it a little different. She separated the ones who were more, her and other kids in the class were more advanced into a different group. And
yep. And that's what we should be doing. But of course, you've got to realize that our education system is designed to keep us stupid and controllable.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not designed to make us great, because the great ones who actually can do great things scare littler than daylights out of those with power. Pardon me for saying this about your president, but I call him the trumpet who makes a terrible noise. And I pray for him. Oh, I pray for him on a regular basis because he must be going through hell. But the reality is, that see, when I was in the space game, I call it the game because in fact we had to laugh and make jokes because of the size of the risks we were taking. We just had to. And the astronauts, by the way, are wonderful pieces. Some of them, not all of them, but most of them are just absolutely amazing. And some of the ones at NASA Goddard and NASA in Houston are just amazing people. But the bureaucrats have taken over and they say, no, you can't understand. You can't do things like that. You can't say things like that. Which is why we have to get an Elon Musk to, in a few months, do what it takes NASA a few years to do. It's because those that have their handles on power don't know how to deal with people who say, hey, I can do better than that. No, you mustn't. Mm-hmm. Did you know that the only reason that Americans put man on the moon by 1970 was because of a bunch of management types that left A.V. Rowe in Canada when Diefenbaker destroyed the aircraft industry, and they went and joined NASA, and they became known as the can-do Canadians. Because when the old part said that, that you can't done, that can't be done, they said, well, we'll have to find a way to do it. But you don't understand, it can't be done, it's too difficult. So that's why we have to find a way to do it. We can do this. And so they became known as the can-do Canadians. And it was exactly what Jack Kennedy wanted in his industry, is he wanted that sort of thinking. Of course we can do it. We don't know how to do it yet, but that's all right. We'll find a way. And so that's basically the reality. And I met many of those people in the early NASA. They were wonderful people. Um, but I was considered to be on the technical side, one of those can-do Canadians. When people said that, oh, you Canadians will never design a Canadarm, the shuttle-attached remote manipulator system. But we did, and I was part of it. I actually, when they couldn't, when the test data on the joints didn't agree with what was in the textbook, I rewrote the equation, and without ever seeing the data. And then when I had the new set of equations, I showed the data to my boss, who was this wonderful gearing expert in Canada, and the data fit my equations, but it didn't fit the textbook equations. So the American people said, "Oh well, you guys are crazy." There were some that were doing a competing design for the Canadarm type manipulator, and I said, "No, you don't understand that you're using the wrong equations here." And so we just showed them how our test data agreed with my equations and not with what was in the textbook. Oh, well, your data must all be wrong.
Yeah.
But it's an attitude problem. It's called the can-do Canadian. That's the name of our nuclear reactors, by the way, is also the can-do reactors, because they're totally different than the American one. It's an attitude problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you took people from Alaska, they would understand our attitude. You know, what are you going to do except think when you're when it's 30 below?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think people need to hear that they are loved more than they know, and I feel like this message is important because it can be difficult.
It's a vital message because, in fact, once you realize the possibility, you don't have to accept it. You only have to realize the possibility that you are loved beyond your ability to understand how great that love is. If you just will accept that possibility, then all of a sudden you can start to allow yourself to hope. And hope is pretty important.
Yeah, definitely. And so is confidence. I feel like that helps people with their confidence and believing. And there's more than.
But the first step in confidence is hope that things could get better.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've tried a few things and find out that in spite of the fact that people say, "Oh, that can't be done," once you've done a few of those things, then your confidence just builds because you know that you weren't thinking fairy stories.
Mm-hmm. And optimism becomes a cornerstone, right?
Do you ever get a chance to study some of the things that some of the astronauts have done? Now, some of their stuff is poor, but some of the astronauts were just unbelievable. Their level of confidence was so great. They worked so hard. They did such amazing things. They did things that initially they believed weren't possible, but they worked hard enough and they worked at it hard enough that they were able to do things that very few humans could ever do. And that you don't have to. Well, actually, I used to be able to drink like a fish, and I used to drink people under the table. And, I had a double wooden leg, so.
Oh wow!
So the guys used to team up with me because our contest was always that if anyone on your team could stand for 10 seconds on one foot, that team won. And I could always do that after all of the rest of them were slouched in their chairs and couldn't even stand with both hands on the table. But anyway. It was something I was born with. But it was interesting because when you got a couple of drinks into them and they told you some of the things that how they'd been told so many times that they were never going to succeed, that in fact that there was They just weren't smart enough. They weren't strong enough. They didn't have enough courage. They had to go through that. And I've met many people. It's not just astronauts, but in the various couple of areas. I've worked in 8 different industry areas or science areas, or engineering areas, and the experts all had that type of a confidence and courage that I will keep trying. I know everybody or most people are saying this can never be done, but I have a feeling it can be, so I'm just going to keep trying. And they're so wonderful to meet people like that. They're so humble. Mm-hmm. The one thing all experts know is how much they don't know, and they can live with that. And it's amazing when you talk to them how easy they are to talk to, and how humble, and how courageous. When things go to hell, they just grin and get start working on it. You know, it's that courage. So we humans are really a rather amazing species, presently being controlled, I guess you could say. Certainly not properly led, by frightened people. And competition, by the way, is the human beings became a very powerful species by cooperation, not by competition. Competition is what frightened children do, frightened boys and girls do. They compete to prove they're bigger and stronger than you are because they're afraid they aren't. Whereas humans became a powerful species by working together in ever larger groups until finally we could do all the marvelous things we can do. And you won't hear that from much in the way of your educational system. It's just like I have my youngest son, my very youngest one died, but the youngest living son, he still tries to do amazing things, and people are always shocked at him, but he's very good because he discusses things like his old man, like I do, with others, and he arrives at a consensus on what should be done. And there's always somebody in the group who says, "Oh no, we'll never succeed at that," and he just laughs. As soon as he hears that, he figures that in fact, yep, we're going to win this one.
So I wanted to ask you. You mentioned when you write, you go into a certain state.
Yep.
Can you describe that a little bit more?
Yeah, it's if you go back into the history of science and of arts and stuff like that, basically you lose all track of time and space. You literally get so involved in what you're doing that there is no time, there is no limit. You're just doing what you're doing, and nothing else is there anymore. And then you realize, you hear your tummy rumble because you kind of pushed things a little bit too far, and you realize that it's now 7 hours since my last had anything to eat. and of course, you just can't believe it because you check the clocks and or your computer, and it says what? Because you're totally involved that you're not aware of anything except what you're doing, and that's why there are a couple of people that I really like as teachers. One of my favorites is a guy called Eckhart Tolle, Really, really good teacher, and she has a wife, girlfriend, Kim, and um, but uh, they his attitude is, or he teaches how to get totally into the flow, where you just literally are in the now, so in the now that things that you aren't doing simply don't exist anymore. And that doesn't mean that you're kind of dead in the head, etc., and mindless. It only means that you're so totally into what you're doing. If you're walking in the bush, all that matters is everything that you're looking and smelling and sensing, um, and that's when, in fact, animals that nobody else gets to see actually allow themselves to be seen by you, and you realize that the forest is completely filled with living creatures and you can see them, and just have one person who is in fact an aggressive person show up, and the animals are all disappeared. They're all gone to hide. And so you can just go into that state where you're so into the now that you're not threatening to any living creature. And everybody knows that's not true. I mean, you talk way out of nonsense, right? That could never happen, but it does happen. It does happen when you're totally in the now. Um, and you sit down for a break, and the squirrel comes up, and checking to find out if that smell in your pocket, and you reach in and you find out that there was leftover sort of peanuts or something, and take it out, and the squirrel comes over and takes it, and takes the shell off, and it's only when it's got the seeds in its mouth that it runs off to hide it, but totally unafraid.
Mm-hmm.
I've known people that have done that sort of thing, and
I have.
And when they talk to you about it, their eyes get as big as saucers, because it's just. And when they try to explain it, people say, "No, you're telling a fairy story," and it's not. It's real.
I've had many experiences with nature, actually,
Yeah.
very many. But one that really was amazing is, well, they were all amazing, but this one was pretty cool. I was driving to pick up my wife, and I was about 15 feet or so, 15 to 20 feet behind a car. And we were on this pretty high traffic road. There was 4 lanes going, 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes going the other way. All of a sudden, this hawk comes out of nowhere and comes towards my car at my eye level, and I looked to my left and I said, "Wow, there's a hawk." And the hawk comes right in between the the car in front of me and my car, and is flying. He was so close that I could see his feet tucked into
Yeah.
right underneath his feathers,
Yeah.
flying right in between us. I'm like, looking at my daughter, I go, do you see this? And they're like, "Yeah, it's a hawk." And he just sits there for about, I don't know, 15 seconds or so maybe, and flies there, and then, swoops, gets out of the way and goes and lands somewhere wherever he wanted to land. And he could have totally took a completely different route. He could have did something utterly different. And he did not have to go in between the cars, but he did. And it was just phenomenal. Unbelievable.
That's because where you were. It might not have happened because if your daughter hadn't been there, but because you were in the moment totally, and so you were safe. You see, and that's the reality, that we're actually in the universe that loves us, and we're infused with that universe, and as a result, there are people in the Far East who they get scientists to come to prove that they're just shysters, to bringing empty containers, sealed containers, metal containers, to bring them with them, and then when they go home, they're told to unseal the container, and the empty container now has a dark liquid in it. It's a type of oil that is used as an incense oil. Um, and of course, they can't figure out how the people did the trick. But I mean, these are the same ones where the scientist go to prove that in fact nobody can walk through a stone wall, and some of these great teachers can do that. The avatars, not just the gurus, and everybody knows that can't be done.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody can ever figure out how they did it because it's obviously a trick. It can't be done, right? You got to be careful about saying what can't be done in this universe. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
oh, by the way, I noticed Uma that we never gave Uma a
Yes.
question.
Yeah, we're running out of time, and we can go over for at least 10 minutes. I'm going to bring you online, Uma, and you're welcome to ask a question. Let me unmute you. Let's see if I can do this. Still learning how to do it. We're in Q&A, so Uma, you can press *6 or a little question mark will be on your bottom left screen if you're on the computer. If you'd like to ask a question. Also, I can also try to bring you on. I don't know why it's not letting me unmute you. Oh, she said no, it is okay.
Oh.
There we go. So, well, what do you think, Uma? You can speak. We can hear you. Or not. I think she might have muted herself, maybe.
Oh, or she could maybe, can she type in a question?
Yeah, she said no, it is okay, but I guess she must not want to talk, which is okay. Totally okay.
Just somewhat like you were talking about though with the hawk.
Mm-hmm.
When I was learning how to glide, I was in a trainer with, with actually a former German fighter plane, World War II fighter plane pilot. But I was in the front seat, being a student, and he was behind me, and we were in a thermal, and this is a clunky old glider, not just a training glider, and we were doing clockwise circuits outside, well out in the thermal, and I looked down and three hawks were playing tag uh, in the core where the lift was much better. Of course, they're more efficient aerodynamically than the old clunky old glider was,
Mm-hmm.
and so they were catching up with us, but they were doing counterclockwise circuits, playing tag with each other, booming up this thermal. And when the first one saw us, it tucked its tail feathers straight down, brought its wings in so that just the tips were out, so rotated and boom, disappeared. And I said, Herbie, look. And so Herbie looked at it. He didn't see the first one, but then the second one came level with us, did the same thing, tucked the tail down so that would tip him over, brought his wings in so that just the tips were out, and just shot down. And then the third one did the same thing. And when we tried to tell people about this, they said, "Oh, you guys tell such tall tales," but it wasn't a tall tale at all. It's just that the two of us were having a tremendous training flight, and we were quiet for just a couple of minutes, just so totally into being in this thermal, just totally enjoying this beautiful day. And I guess we were so spaced out that the hawks didn't feel us until they saw us. and and uh, and then of course, I mean, there's this great big clunky old glider, going in the opposite direction, and so they look and then, oh my God, I'm out of here. But it's amazing, once they tuck the tail feathers over like that, they're moving at a pretty good clip, and when the tail feathers go down, they rotate, and then of course they bring their wings in and just the tips stick out. Have
Yeah.
you ever read the book Jonathan Livingston Seagull?
No, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. But it's just that it is so. Just because somebody tells something that seems to be impossible doesn't mean it's impossible. It might mean it's highly unlikely, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. And you see, those who want to control us, can you imagine somebody trying to control me? Think about it for a second.
I definitely. Well, somehow that voice in your head is kind of controlling you.
Oh, no, actually,
Or you?
I always get suggestions. I don't get told.
Oh.
What I get told is more like, why don't you try this? Why don't you change that? Et cetera, et cetera. No, we were given free will, primarily so that we could choose, and it wasn't forced on us. But no, I don't. Sorry, I miss. It's hard to explain this voice, but no, I don't get told. I'm just given suggestions.
Mm.
And one of them is, if you really worded it like this, it would actually be better. And when I was told, I was trying to, how do I explain what this is that was before the universe even started to come into, the first part of the universe that came was the space-time grid. And it expanded. And when it expanded, then a whole bunch of things that followed got drawn out as well. But and with that rapid expansion, things cooled, et cetera, a whole bunch of things went on. But we're now finding that our models of what existed in that, they're going to be seriously revised in the next few years, maybe even closer. But it doesn't change the fact that what existed was this pure information, and I said, well, what do I call it? And I was told to call it pure information. And because I read 6 to 8 hours a day, within a few weeks, I found 2 other researchers that were at the leading edge in their field, started using that word for the first time. So we all got the message at the same time. And we call it spirit, capital S. In the Abrahamic traditions, it's called the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And the Word, how do you explain something that is pure information that isn't part of the physical reality? It's hard. It's really hard. And so various texts in the I think Krishna actually had some expressions, but I can't remember what they are. I certainly know that Buddha just simply said, well, don't go there, except in the last 6 months of Buddha's life, he actually came to grips with the fact that there was more than just the quiet, the stillness, the emptiness. And Jesus, of course, basically told us a whole bunch of things. I mean, one of the things that Jesus call him a teacher, he said that we were going to do greater miracles than he had ever done. Mm-hmm. So if you were to look at some of the things we're doing now in medicine and in science,
yeah,
and people said, no, you can't say that. Jesus didn't mean that.
Yeah.
I think Jesus. You don't tell Jesus what Jesus doesn't mean.
I know, right? Uma does have a question. She asked, how is karma related in the universe?
Is it related to? Sorry.
how is karma related in the universe?
Oh, that's something that I write about actually on Quora a lot. Um, Karma is a process in the universe that the universe uses to automatically make anti-life things disappear or to foster life processes. So if anything sends out anti-life sorts of things, the universe being generous, and the universe is generous, we've been told that's not true, but it is true. The universe sends back more than you send out. If I send out one unit of nasty, I get a couple of units of nasty back. So I end up with more than I started with, even though I gave it out, And if I give that out, it builds and it builds. And of course, anything that builds like that becomes huge in a hurry. If I send out a unit of love, I get back several units of love. If I send those out, I get many more units of love. If I send those out, so it's basically a way that the universe uses to, now remember the universe sees time different than we do. 14 billion years old, as far as we know, roughly. That when we anything that wants to be negative will be without any specific action, just because karma is a part of the process of the universal process. Nasty creates nasty until nasty actually self-destructs. Love creates creation, and life creates life, so that life. So at the moment, all of these people that are doing terrible things and destroying ecosystems are going to be in for a very rough time of it. But life will exist. Life will. So maybe humans won't exist if we insist on destroying the life processes on the planet. Maybe the planet will decide it can't bother, it can't afford to have humans anymore. But that won't change the fact that life will exist. So karma has two parts. What you send out comes back to you. And the second part is what comes back from a very generous universe is more than you sent out. So watch what you send out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you, Jacob?
Oh, yeah. I've thought of things, and they come back to me faster than I expected to. Like, for example, I spend a lot of time with my kids, and this is kind of just a once-a-month thing, and I work on, my business. But anyways, when I was with my daughter, my first daughter, at a play area, I remember thinking it would be nice to have another kid, and then about a month later, my wife told me she was pregnant. It wasn't twins, so it didn't come out double, but just thinking, it came.
But the thing is that, our idea of, well, for one thing, did you know that space-time exists, but neither space nor time exists separately? Have you heard that?
Yes.
That's true. So we scientists use this process called reductionism. When we take things apart, we try to keep track of everything, every interaction, and then hope to put it back together again where it'll work. It's like, did you ever take an alarm clock apart when you were a kid and put it back together again?
No.
Yeah, well, I did it a couple of times. The first time it didn't work, and the second time it didn't work, but the third time it did work. So I got the belt the first two times. But it was two different alarm clocks. But no. What we don't know, for instance, every cell in your body is talking to every other cell in your body. And it isn't using chemical or electromagnetic signals.
It's using
Okay,
electric
the
impulses.
electromagnetic is part of the energy matter. You know that matter is just a form of energy, right?
Right.
Yeah. So really, when you say energy, matter is included. When I write them, I write energy with a capital E for energy, but small m for slash matter for the small m, because matter isn't the same. It's just a part of energy. But when you send out a thought to the universe, well, there is no real time as such in the universe. It is. There's a type of math, actually. It's called non-commutative mathematics, and it basically models what happens at the very, very small scales. And that basically says that things are. The past, the present, and the future are. And we, creatures, need the concept of time to deal with everything that is, so that it doesn't totally blow us apart. I mean, it would be just too much for our minds, given where we are, to deal with. And so, but when, for instance, when we take a living thing apart and try to put it back together again, does it become life again? No.
Yeah.
Not so far, I think. Not so far, I think. But the thing is that there are people working at trying to figure out what are the non-energy, non-matter signals going on between not only cells, but between the components of cells. And they're finding them. They're finding them. Now they just have to figure out what to do with them. So, life is going to get very interesting in the next. We live in an amazing time. Now I'm 81, so maybe I won't see as much as you and your children will see. But I'm just hoping we don't destroy the ability of the universe to support our lives because of the terrible things we're doing. Yeah. I'm an optimist. I happen to. I guess I'm an optimist. I happen to believe that we will smarten up and we're going to actually dump the sorts of people that destroy life.
Sorry to interrupt. Uma has another question, and we'll make this the last one because I got to get going. She asked about the torus as energy fields. I'm sure you know about the torus.
Yeah, there are cameras now that can actually, and sensors that can actually measure it. The field that we give out. Now, this is not the information field. This is the energy field, energy matter field. We give out a field of energy. Some wonderful work goes on in the Netherlands about this. And yeah, it looks like a torus. And outside the torus, there's a certain distance where it drops off. But it kind of builds to surround us. And that's why, for instance, with certain people, you can walk up to them, and at some particular point, you no longer feel separate from them. Because your field and their field, even now, on the pure information side, that doesn't dissipate. That's uniform throughout the universe. But on the energy matter side, when you get close to somebody who's radiating a certain amount of energy, and you do, you will actually feel that, and there will be a point where, in fact, you no longer have separate fields. It will be one field, one integrated field. That there are instruments that can measure that. There are ways of actually taking those instruments and making pictures of it. Now, I don't have it. I have never bothered. But it is true. It's real.
I mentioned Christopher Timms a while back, and he and I have been able to connect telepathically without seeing each other, and just communicate within the other level, or whatever you want to call it, information field.
Yeah, it's information. Yes. It's voice field or whatever. But it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But yeah, it's very interesting, and I would love to talk a lot more, but I do need to get going and help my wife out with the youngins. It was a pleasure. I'm trying to pronounce this correctly. Jesuis Laplume.
You don't pronounce the last E. Jesuis Laplume. Yes, I am the pen.
Yes, you are the pen. And Uma, thank you very, very much for being here. I greatly appreciate your guys' attendance. It's been wonderful and fun, and I will be posting this recording on my group, Universal Heart, and I might post it on my website. I'll have to do some editing, make sure everything's good to go, and do some editing. And once again, thanks, and we should definitely talk again. There's lots of fun topics I like to talk about, nature and love and just whatever else we could think of.
Oh, there's so much. There is so much to talk about.
There is.
This is amazing. Just marvelous. With an echo.
Yes. What would you like to leave the audience, like your message?
Well, the message is very simple. Your love more than you can comprehend.
Yes, I agree.
That's a pretty nice feeling.
Right. Yes. Yes, it is. And it's something that we should remember every day.
Or every second.
Yes, that's even better. Every millisecond.
Yep.
All right. Well, have a good day, guys. And this is Jacob Dietrich signing off with Body, Mind, and Sound. Take care.
Sure. I sure hope we can talk.
Sure hope what?
We can talk later.
Yes. We'll have to arrange a time again. Let me turn off the recording. I don't know where it's at. I swear this thing keeps changing every time I try to do things.
You're not the only one that has